Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, people of all ages, sexualities, and identities. Welcome back to another Doctor Who review. And today's review is Faithful Friends. So sit back, relax, and get ready for an adventure of a lifetime. From mad mutating bats to dog creatures falling into the pits of snow, and even monks who seem to know exactly what you want. The Doctor is in for quite a ride this adventure. The Krillitane Find, Episode 1 of this box set. The Doctor, Zoe, and Jamie turn up to a facility that seems to be experimenting on bat-like creatures, and they decide to impersonate themselves as members of staff. As the story goes along, we find out the fact that these Krillitane bats aren't exactly as asleep as I like to believe. And all of a sudden, when murders begin to take place, the Doctor, Zoe, and Jamie must explain their presence. But when it seems like all is just as simple as it should be, it turns out that the Doctor, Jamie, and Zoe have never been in the facility in the first place. And in fact, the Krillitane have taken their form in order to infiltrate the facility and free their brethren. As the Doctor, Jamie, and Zoe tried to enter the facility for the very first time and stop the Krillitane, sadly, it's too late. The Krillitane enter and massacre as many people as possible, and as they do so, they then set off the self-destruct, leaving only one Krillitane alive, one who impersonates Zoe Harriet. The second story in this box set, The Dying Breed, follows the Doctor and Leela and K9 as they go upon a snowy plain of a planet, when all of a sudden the Doctor realizes that they are in the Lupari belt of the solar system. Now, the Lupari, for anyone who has not watched Series 13 or any of Jodie Whittaker's era, are a species of dog half-bear creatures which appear to people to be like dogs. And essentially, they're warriors, they're brave, and they're very brawn. But essentially, the Doctor and Leela and K9 turn up on the planet and bump into a soothsayer who knows the future of the Doctor and the Lupari's relationships. She knows about the abomination that is to come. She knows about the very last Lupar who will ever exist. Well, at least to her comprehension. And most importantly, she knows about the plot ready to unfold. Leela is very skeptical about the soothsayer. After all, the Doctor has taught her so much about science. The Doctor then explains down the line to the soothsayer that he doesn't necessarily disbelieve in her, but he believes that a lot of magic is similar to science. K9 meets the king of the Lupar and becomes very good friends with him. Meanwhile, the Doctor is trying to figure out how to save the Lupar King's son, who is dying of an illness. But after getting distracted by what caused his son's illness, the Doctor and Leela find themselves in a fight against time. It turns out that the Lupar daughter is trying to claim the throne, waiting for her brother to die and her father to die of old age. It turns out that a shift in time has brought a bunch of human beings to the Lupari sector, and these human beings are pre-age historical humans, back from the stone times, and they didn't intend to hurt or bite the Lupar, but of course, being scared and out of their mind, they find themselves in a situation which is hard to come to terms with. After Leela beats the daughter in combat and goes back to the king takes power once again after his son sadly passes. He begins to bark the moon for his loss of his son, but decides to protect the human beings by pretty much keeping them at a distance from the humans, at least until everything is resolved. The Doctor, Leela, and K9 leave, but this is not the first time the Doctor goes to the Lupari. Of course, he goes down the line and revisits the planet at a later date with his friend Adric. Upon this revisitation, he hears the soothsayer tell the story of 1,000 times that the Lupari will meet the Time Lord known as the Doctor, and he jokes with the soothsayer that he will not mention it if she will not. The Krillitane Relic, the third installment of this box set, follows along with the Seventh Doctor landing on a space station in the far future that is trying to help people live forever whilst keeping them in cryostasis. He is joined by his companion Ray, and upon landing on the space station, he becomes rather confused. He bumps into a woman he believes to be Zoe Harriet, and amongst trying to recall all the events of the Wheel in Space and many different times they met, and even knowing as far as the Time Lord wiping her memory, the Doctor becomes very conflicted. He doesn't understand why she doesn't remember him. But then, of course, after knowing that the Time Lords can be very savage when wiping people's mind, he begins to realise that maybe they took away more than he expected. Towards the end of this story, though, the Doctor suddenly realises his mistake. It turns out that this is another mistake of one of his adventures. The Krillitane who took Zoe Harriet's form was still out in space, and she goes by a different name. She has been waiting for so long to let her Krillitane brethren take over the space station, but the Doctor turning up kind of put a spanner in her works. Ray feels sorry for the Doctor, but eventually the pair of them manage to lock the Krillitane in stasis, freezing them entirely, hoping that no one will ever come on the space station and unfreeze them. The Doctor points out to Ray that he just wished so hard that he would have seen his old friend again. But sadly, his past has come back to haunt him instead. The final installment of this box set, 500 Ways to Kill Your Lover by Tim Foley. This story is a piece of art. It draws on the effects of what has happened in The Lie of the Land and stuff like that. And essentially what's happened in this story is the Doctor has infiltrated, using a hologram, a simulation in which a guy who is supposed to be on a date with his boyfriend has pretty much been wired into a system believing that the Doctor is his boyfriend. Well, until everything starts to go to kaput. It turns out that the monks have infiltrated his simulation in hopes of using him as a linchpin to take over the world. Little does he know, though, that every corner and every turn the monk will be trying to do some way of getting an agreement. And so they use the Doctor's tactic in becoming his boyfriend, using an imaginary guy named as Mark based on someone they had seen around the facility. Our main protagonist, Chris, is completely confused by this, as he really, really badly wants someone, but he feels like he keeps breaking up with them. As the story progresses, Chris realises that he knows something's wrong because he keeps trying to break up with the Doctor, but then he keeps trying to break up with Mark, and he keeps trying to break up with everyone. And eventually, the Doctor manages to open his mind up to, as long as he doesn't get married to Mark and he breaks the system completely, the monks will never be able to seize control and never be able to break into his reality and take over his planet. After escaping the system and being absolutely naked, Chris accidentally bumps into a very handsome janitor, who he luckily gets asked out by, and the pair of them go off for a drink. So what did I think of Faithful Friends? Overall, this box set is solid. Wendy Padwell, you're an absolute genius. in this box. The way that you play off evil Zoe Harriet, I'm here for it. I want more of it. Please, 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 Big Finish. Make Wendy Padwell play more villainous roles. Tom Baker and K9. Tom Baker is absolutely lovable as always in this box set. K9 is the perfect. Honestly, we need K9 back in the modern series at this point because K9 is the perfect companion for going on a dog planet. He literally spends the whole plot of the Lupari story calling the Doctor and Leela peasants, and then has the cheek to sit next to the Lupari king and raise a toast. The brilliant twists and turns, though, I liked in this was the twist in the very first story of this whole box set, where we felt like we knew the story, and then the writer just completely twisted it. John Dorney definitely grips your heart in this story. This idea that you feel like the Doctor, Zoe, and Jamie are all on like just another mission that we've seen them before, and then nope, they're not the real Doctor, Jamie, and Zoe. They're imposters. John Dorney, brilliant work on that, mate. Yeah, throughout this whole box set, John Dorney and Tim Foley, both their stories come across very dramatic, very fast-paced, but in a good way. They have that level as the story progresses, and I feel like that's what makes these box sets so solid, is when you feel like you're getting these characters to progress, but then you're also getting twists and turns where you feel like you know the plot, but you have no clue at all. So, classic Doctors, modern monsters, faithful friends. What do I give it out of 10? Honestly, Lupari story, I want more. Monk story, want more. Krillitane story, I want more. And for that reason, I give Faithful Friends a solid 10 out of 10. No notes. Thank you very much for watching, and we will see you in the next Doctor Who review. Until then, goodbye. Stay beautiful, you amazing people.